Okay, we are live. Hey, good morning. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, podcast listeners, or afternoon, wherever you are when you're listening to this. My name is Amanda. I'm excited today to be talking with you all about something that is really central to any therapeutic psychedelic work, and that is integration. And it's often talked about, but feels like it's rarely explained. So today we're going to unpack it and explore a little bit about how you can create a really strong integration practice in your own life, especially as it relates to the microdosing journey. So, hey, Grizz, good morning. Nice to see you there. I love your green and lush background.
Good morning. Yes, bom dia. That's Portuguese for good morning. But it is afternoon here in Kentucky, and yes, it's very green. The cardinals should come by soon and say hi. I always like it when they. Y'all have cardinals out in Arizona, the red birds.
No, we did in Minnesota. I remember seeing them, but I don't see them here, at least not in the Phoenix area, maybe elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited for all about that dose Thursdays. But yeah, integration and like you said, sharing, really helping people understand and get real help with integration. And
Mhm.
sometimes, just in my experience, yeah, it falls behind. Like you said, it's often talked about, but we go back into our daily lives and go home, and we really don't get the integration that we really need. So I think
Mhm.
this is good.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. And it's interesting, um, the similarities and differences between the integration practice as it relates to microdosing versus macrodosing, which we'll chat about in a few minutes. But when I was getting ready for this episode, I was doing just a little bit of research, and so I decided to Google the definition of integration. What does integration actually mean? And when we're looking at integration, it literally means to bring together or incorporate parts to a whole. So we're taking parts and we're moving them toward a whole. And that makes sense because there's all these different parts of us, right? And an energy consciousness, there's 7 different energy levels that we all have a mix of all the time. And so in integration, we're taking those strands of those levels of consciousness, or ways of being or values, or however you are anchoring your integration practice. We're taking those strands and weaving them into a whole experience of our life. And that might still sound a little bit esoteric. So I also looked up the dictionary definition for disintegrate because I was curious about the juxtaposition there. And so disintegrate is to break up into small parts. And the first definition said that it was typically as a result of some type of impact or delay. So if you think about the visual of something disintegrating, right, from a whole into pieces that eventually disappear or break down, it's kind of easier than to rewind that, at least for me in my brain, to rewind that and think about all those little pieces coming together and building up into this whole. And then the second definition was around social structures. So this idea of weakening or breaking apart. Families can disintegrate, marriages can disintegrate, and similarly, when two people then come together, they are integrating their lives, right? So we're creating a whole out of the parts. So for me, taking that into that aligns with what I believe, because I believe that we are all already whole, and energetically we're all already perfect, and where we are today makes perfect sense based on our past life experiences, and everything is working and unfolding exactly as what makes the most sense. And so integration from this standpoint of like, I'm already whole and I'm choosing to highlight or bring out more of these qualities that I want to create as like a foundational piece or a cornerstone. I think for me that kind of creates a nice visual or nice way to anchor into this concept. Yeah. So I don't know if that's all too heady or dictionary level, but leave it to the teacher to pull out the Webster dictionary to get some information. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
like it. I think once we start talking about examples and sharing more, I think it'll all come around full circle for a lot of people if it is just a little too much, but it'll all make sense in the end.
Hmm.
Trust us.
Yeah, yeah, and I know even probably a lot of what I just said might feel a little esoteric or ineffable. However, I think the next the next section here to somewhat clumsily segue into it is a common thing that I get from people who are starting a psychedelic assisted journey, and that is, what am I supposed to integrate? This idea of integration, what what the heck am I supposed to even be integrating? What does that look like? And really, if we think about integration as a universal principle, you can integrate whatever you want. You can integrate anything. What we do in the psychedelic space or therapeutic space is we're highlighting and we're kind of allowing to emerge this authentic core, this authentic self that is more aligned with what we want and that is more aligned with the energy that we want to express or kind of the life we want to create or live. Um, as a personal example of this, to kind of bring it into a real world example, in my own integration practice, some of the things that I've really integrated are around healing, the belief that I'm already whole. So that part of myself, right, that strand, that higher vibrational level of consciousness, tapping into that, finding things that allow me to tap into that. And then once I have that experiential reference or insight or whatever, I'm able to really connect with that in maybe a special setting that I've set up to facilitate that connection. Then it's easier to weave it into my daily life when I am, um, you know, busy all day with the kids home from school, and I've got work stuff going on, and I've got to make lunch, and the kids maybe get in a fight about something, so I'm able to tap into that more easily because I have this experiential reference for this higher vibrational energy that I want to have more of. So I'm not integrating something that's outside of myself. I'm integrating something that's inside that I want to bring out more of.
Yeah, I love that because it seems like in the past, in my experience, a lot of integration was that like almost like outside in versus inside out. It was almost like it just felt like a lot of different like do this, do that. You're having, you want to do this with your marriage, do this, do that, versus like the work that I'm doing now and a lot of the stuff that you're teaching. For me, in my experience, it's like just by working on this, let's say one concept to simplify it, that allows me to be more present in my awareness. Just working on that. It's not a simple concept, but it's simple in the fact that how you teach it, it's easy to get to that place. It's your meditation. It's simple to get to this place of awareness that softens me. So just that exercise of softening me allows me to really integrate almost naturally. It overflows and integrates into my marriage. It naturally overflows and integrates into my relationship with my kids, my other relationships. It naturally overflows into my connection into nature. I'm able to be more present with the animals versus like having this list of things like, hey, okay, go outside and meditate and try to talk to the cardinal birds. It's not. It's almost taking that reverse approach, and it just feels more natural. And I love it. I love the way things are naturally integrating through the core work.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I like how you put that. It is like an allowing, right? So when you have these insights or you have these epiphanies, whether it's through a psychedelic experience or through a meditation or through some other introspective or therapeutic pursuit, you have these realizations. And once you have this realization, it cannot be unrealized, right? It's in you and it's with you. And then throughout the day, it's a matter of connecting with that, so that way, it is allowing, you're allowing these higher vibrational energies to come through, to be more patient, to be more present, to be more connected, whatever whatever is in alignment with what you're working toward, whatever your values are. So yeah, I think that does speak to kind of the effortless nature of this inside out integration process, because it's about having insights, and then it's about becoming aware of the subconscious processes that have previously impeded this insight, and having the ability to consciously choose to put them down, right? To step out of the way, to let the higher flow come in and come through. And it just feels better. And so it's like it just, it kind of builds on itself, because your relationships improve, your parenting improves, right? Your household starts to feel happier, all because you're allowing this higher vibrational energy to come forth through integration.
Yeah, I think about there's a video, and I'm sure there's several out there that show like new neural pathways growing and different studies with mushrooms, lion's mane, reishi, not just the psychedelic psilocybin mushroom, but I just keep having this like visual of like this work you're talking about, but combining it with this sacred medicine. It's like it's like a switch. Like I don't know, when you were describing putting that down the old way, it's like the practice and the medicine. I can't explain it. I don't even know if science really can, but it's like you just switch over, or you start switching over to a new timeline, a new pattern in your brain that it just starts working. Like you said, it just, these new thoughts, these new feelings, these new ways of being just start flowing more naturally. And yeah, like you
Mhm.
said, it feels a lot better.
Hmm. Yeah, and to speak to a little bit, I know I've talked about this on previous episodes, but the science does show how effective psilocybin is in helping us create these new emotional habits, thought patterns, subconscious patterns, because of the neurobiological impact that it has on our system, from quieting the blood flow to the amygdala, to to quieting our default mode network, to doing the tangible things in our brain, allow us to more easily shift into these states of being and ways of experiencing our life that we want more of. And the critical period. I think I talked about this in the last or no, 2 episodes ago, about how psilocybin opens critical period in our brain, which is where it's learning. That's the neuroplasticity. It's learning, it's learning, it's learning. And so when you are integrating alongside a psychedelic practice, you are essentially putting your personal growth on steroids, like a natural steroids. Maybe that's not the best metaphor. Steroids aren't good.
God gave this gift to us. Take it and enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It is a tool to help us in cultivating these brain patterns that support our highest good. And we can choose into that, or we can not choose into that. Really, it is our choice. And microdosing gives us a really powerful tool, a really sacred tool to be able to connect with that more spiritual side to ourselves, right? Not religious necessarily, but spiritual side, that purpose, deeper meaning, fulfillment, contentedness, all of those things in that spiritual frequency, we're able to really tap into and then create a life and create our changes truly from the inside out.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were saying you could either choose to do this or not. I had this thought of the things that maybe you're doing right now, you're putting in your body. Uh, Maybe it's the pharmaceuticals, maybe it's food. You know, it's fast food, but the things that are easy, the things that the government are giving out for free, right? All these things that are like easy and free, and um, I would say the majority of them are not the best thing for you, for your body, for your mind. And so, you know, doing something different, going this route, it's not the easiest route, but it's worth it. And it seems like everything that we're doing, it's going to be a little challenging, uh, but the reward at the end. I mean, if you think of working out, all of that, there's a little work to it, but it's really, I think, what your body and your mind craves and really needs to be the best version. And yeah, I mean, they're not. They're, I guess the point of this is like they're not selling mushrooms on the corner, right? Like they should be, but there's a reason. And so I guess the maybe the bigger thing of this is like the things that are hidden, go a little deeper and and see why, you know, there's been this war on this medicine, you know, and that hopefully, if you're not there yet, can kind of wake you up and start making you, you know, think along these lines of really putting yourself and thinking for yourself
Mm-hmm.
versus what you're being told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like anyone who's listening to this podcast probably has maybe doesn't have an idea of the specifics of all of the politics and kind of the class warfare that was going on around the war on drugs. But I imagine they're probably fairly open to the idea at this point if they're this deep in the rabbit hole. Um, but what you were saying makes me think about the thing that came to my mind is this idea of the path of least resistance. And that path of least resistance is paved by mainstream cultures, paved by our own subconscious patterns and habits and things that drive us. Um, we were talking about Carl Jung earlier before this chat, and he has a quote that's amazing and powerful, and it's until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that is so true. Your life is being directed right now entirely by your unconscious patterns, your subconscious, uh, loops and energetic loops that are going on beneath the surface, because your brain simply can't be conscious of everything everywhere all at once. It does not have the bandwidth for that. So it's designed to put these things into autopilot. So when we are integrating, we are getting into those subconscious networks, those subconscious patterns in order to create a new path of least resistance. So initially, the path is a little more challenging. However, as you begin to build the neural pathways, that will become the path of least resistance. And the old path will become overgrown and less rutted as it's not used anymore. But it's a very real thing, these pathways in our brain. So yeah, integration is a powerful opportunity to consciously choose where you want your path of least resistance to be and where you want it to go. Yeah. So when we're talking about like microdosing versus macrodosing, Grizz, you have a lot more experience than I do in the macro side. What are some of the kind of the key parts of integration or the most important pieces of integration from the ceremonial macro side that you've seen in yourself and in the people that you've served?
So yeah, it's really what we're building. I'm taking my experience, and it's a process of continuous improvement. And we're at a point now with the church, with the stuff we're doing with the microdosing moms, now with microdosing dads. We're getting into working with vets. It's about community, and that was the thing with a lot of my experiences is we would go to ceremonies and then we would go home, and then like you're kind of like on an island. And I mean, you could still, I mean, there you can still call somebody, right, or message them on Facebook, but it was missing this Google Calendar, for example, that we've created with the church and the microdosing moms. It was missing that structure of like, hey, every week we're getting on live as a community, we're coming together and sharing what's working. And so that is the biggest difference, like you said, with the Western culture versus what's going on down in South America, is because they all live together. And so having community that is closer is a huge part of integration for the tribes that we work with. The community is one of the biggest things that you can have for integration. And yeah, just having that person to talk to, really. But like with the calendar with the church, Not Teresa, we have meetups every month. We have different ceremonies and drum circles that we're doing. And so those are providing opportunities to integrate. So, like you said, maybe somebody wants to come out and dance. There's opportunities to sing, to play music, to work with the Hape medicine, to do a call with us over Zoom. And so, creating these structured outlets versus it just kind of just being out there where there's not as much structure, I think is going to help a lot of people with integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. So I'm hearing you say that the most important thing is community, is other people on the path with you. And in Western culture, because, unlike the indigenous traditions or cultures where they are all together, they have that community. We are on our islands, right? As you said, we're kind of in this isolated space. And so the structure of things like the Nat Teresa Church or wherever people are integrating from, the structure allows us to facilitate this important and critical aspect to integration because we aren't meant to be alone. We aren't meant to heal in isolation. We are meant to be together. We are meant to connect and have real connections, not just surface level ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
well, I was gonna say it's interesting that just working with the medicine and like my neighbors. It's the first time I've had neighbors where they're coming over. And I mean, we did a private ceremony the other night, and had some people come in town. And I invited my neighbors, and it was towards the end of the ceremony, but they came, stumbling through the backyard and opened the gate and came back, and it was good. It was good to have that like community, and it gave a new energy to the ceremony. And they're working with the mushrooms now and microdosing, and I've noticed a shift just in that part of the integration. We're talking about the community, and when they're having problems with their spouse, like they'll come over and maybe do some hape or just talk, versus being closed and thinking that you don't have anybody to talk to. So I feel like the medicine really opens you up to experiencing new things, and being more vulnerable. To have another man go to another man and be vulnerable, it's big, and I think a lot of that has to do with the medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it does foster a beautiful connection between individuals that transcend our societal structures or limitations that we've created for ourselves. Those are imaginary. They don't have to be real. Yeah. So, well, community is huge, and when we're looking at like the literal nuts and bolts of what integration is, when we're talking about, say, a macro practice, you're looking at, you've had this one singular event, right? This experience, whether it's in a ceremony or by yourself, you've had one experience that has created a whole lot of insight, right? It's created a whole lot of awareness or learning or experience. That's big. And when you are integrating, I think the the biggest thing with the macro is that you want to pull out the strands from the macro experience. You want to pull out those takeaways, those key learnings, and learn how to, like, what does that look like to weave it into your life? How do those strands fit in with the current strands, and how does it change the dynamic of your life, and how can you create new habits, patterns, behaviors, and interactions that support a higher vibrational living? So when you're talking about a singular event, integration can still be a lifelong process, even with singular events. But typically speaking, those singular events are going to be incredibly profound, because you're altering your state of consciousness so much, and there's so much to bring back into this more mainstream version of consciousness that we experience every day. And
Yeah,
then, with on the other side of that, when we're talking about microdosing, I think because microdosing is subperceptual, you don't have that big, amazing, powerful experience. And so everything is more subtle. I don't think it's any less powerful, it's just more subtle. And the changes and realizations you have are happening in real time, embedded in your life. And so integration, I believe, with microdosing is a lifestyle. Integration is a practice. Integration is something that is ongoing all the time, whether you know it or not. It's kind of an opt-in, or you consciously choose to opt in to create, to become a creator in your life, and really drive those new neural connections and those new pathways to where you want them to go. So, like with microdosing, let's say some of your, if as a mom, for example, you want more patience with your kids, or you want, a more harmonious marriage with your spouse, then, the things that you'll be integrating are going to be within yourself, those higher vibrational frequencies to support and foster those changes in your life. It's always focused on allowing that higher self to express, because it's part of the wholeness of who you are, versus obviously changing external circumstances, which maybe should also be done at times. However, the focus, I think, with integration and the power is internal, is that inside out expression of higher self, because if you do that, if you express from that higher space of consciousness, you are going to attract to you over time more of that. And eventually, like you said with the timeline, you're going to create a higher vibrational timeline for yourself. It just takes time. It takes a willingness to go down the path of least resistance regularly. And ultimately, that becomes the, sorry, to not go down the path of least resistance. And it becomes the, oh, I think I lost Grizz. Well, when he comes back, we'll keep going. Until then, I will keep chatting. Yeah, so we go down the path of resistance in pursuit of the higher conscious vibration. And eventually that does become the path of least resistance. Sorry, I stumbled over my words a little bit there. Yep, I think I heard some wind over there. So maybe Grizz is experiencing some weather. Okay, well, let's get to the end of this as we start to wrap it up here. Here he comes. A little technology issue there. Hey, Grizz, looks like you're back. Hey.
Yep. Hey.
Okay, that's right. You didn't miss much. So the kind of getting to the real tip portion of this. So let's say you want to start an integration practice. You're microdosing, you want to start an integration practice, and you're just not sure how to start it. There are 3 questions that I came up with that you can ask yourself that can help guide you in the direction of figuring out what makes sense for you in building your practice. And the first question is, what are some personal values I want to align more with in my life? So some, might be things like connection or abundance or love or, any number of things. Like what are the things that you value most? And what do you want to align more with in your life? That's question number 1. Figure out what's important to you. Everything else will fall into place. And then the second question is, how do I want to feel? Which is different than what do I really want? And initially I'd put that question in, what do I really want? But that tends to yield externally focused results. What do I really want? Well, I want like a happy marriage. I want kids that are well adjusted. But instead of that question, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel when your marriage is happy and healthy? How do you want to feel when your kids are well adjusted adults? What feelings do you want to have inside of you when you create those things that you want? So we'll skip the middleman and go right to that space. What do I want to feel? And then the third question, what activities or practices will help me deepen into these values and feel the way I want to feel? What brings those feelings out in you now? Right? What activities support and nourish your values? So those 3 questions, I think, can lead you in the direction of starting to create an integration practice. Yeah. And then finally, the last piece. So let's say you've got all that dialed in and you are clear about what you want to feel and what your values are, and you're really deeply rooted in it. What are some of the essential components to a thriving integration practice? And I think there are 3 that I came up with. There's more, but these 3 kind of jumped out to me initially. And so the first one is that you want to have some type of journaling practice. I know that journaling isn't for everybody, and it doesn't have to look any certain way, but there should be some way that you are logging your internal process, your growth, your development, your thoughts, your insights. If you don't keep track of these things, They're not just going to plant themselves in your brain and grow and you'll visit them periodically. Like they will disappear, they will go away. You want to create shape to them, and you want to get them out somehow. And so whether that's, sitting down and handwriting in a journal, or I have an app that I use that syncs with all my devices, so no matter where I am, no matter what's going on with my insight, I can always access my journal. And I can write down a sentence, I can write down 5 paragraphs, whatever level of investment is totally fine. You just want to track it and get it out somehow. So
Yeah,
do you have
I have something to share with the listeners that I think might help. That's helping other people. Is two things. You could do it two ways. You could start posting on like Instagram or Facebook and just start expressing yourself. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you can start a new profile. I've had people just start a brand new profile. It's a faceless profile, and that's their way of like integrating and expressing themselves and posting anonymously, but still a way to document or journal, and they're just doing it through Instagram is easier for them. So
I love that. That's like putting the ism into journal. Teehee,
yeah,
journalism, get it? Anyway, okay, so no, I do actually really like that because it's raw, it's honest, like you're not putting these finished products out there. Like, let's do this. Let's change the landscape of surface social media and put real content out there. I love that. I am committing right now. I am going to do more of that on my pages. I think that it's helpful and it's necessary to put stuff out there that isn't perfectly polished, that people
mhm.
can relate to, that shows and conveys authenticity. I love that. So,
Even getting in groups, like I've found a renewed sense of energy just in myself by sharing in Facebook groups and sharing my experience, my knowledge. And so that's just another way, to integrate and to journal and to share. And so, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I really like that idea as an option for journaling. That's really good. Definitely more public. So maybe you're not willing to do that. That's totally fine. I'm going to start doing it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's powerful, and I think it's a whole movement in and of itself. We're bringing back Live Journal, guys. You're old enough to remember Live Journal and MySpace. We have all the blogs on there. Yeah, just thoughts, right? Thoughts and insights and takeaways. What you are experiencing epiphanies or aha moments around might inspire somebody else. So I love that. However, you want to practice or express, definitely get it out somehow. So journaling is a powerful way of expressing and integrating and monitoring your growth as well for reflection. The second essential component to a microdosing practice is working with some kind of psychedelic informed coach or therapist. Depending on the specifics of what you're working through, will help you determine if whether therapy or coaching is right for you, but both are very powerful modalities. And it's so important to have somebody who's informed in the psychedelic growth process because it is different than kind of our traditional Western centric, cognitively focused, and getting a little more and more focused in some of the other frequencies, but still primarily cognitively focused modalities. It's not the same. It will help. I'm not saying that it's not helpful. It will help, but there is a ceiling to those cognitive based strategies that somebody who's more psychedelically informed understands, and they can support you in navigating those deeper layers in order to reach that space of authentic self-expression. Yeah. And then the third thing is to have some kind of what I call an introspective infrastructure, which is a fun way of saying you need some methodology to connect with what is happening within you. Now, I teach about the six frequencies of consciousness and some awareness techniques around getting really super aware, broadening your window of perception in order to broaden your window of tolerance and move through triggers, move through your life in ways that support that emergence of that higher authentic self. So whatever your system looks like, have one, have a way that will support you in diving deep in doing the shadow work, in supporting kind of taking the higher resistant paths at first in order to make them easier to traverse and more subconscious and automatic as your life unfolds, as your healing unfolds. So those are the three kind of main things that I feel are essential to any integration practice. Is there anything that you would add, Grizz? I did not consult you when I made this list, so I apologize for that.
No, I just like what you said about the macro and the micro, and pulling things out of these micro or macro experiences and having a community that you can integrate these experiences with and talk to about and have somebody to share with that is not going to think you're crazy because you just had some realization that totally flipped your mind about, religion, for example, or some, light beings of the forest that you communicated with. You maybe can't talk to your sister or your parents about. So um, it's good to have somebody that can help you weave these parts and experiences that you've had back into you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
back into you. I like that. So I agree with you. I think a fourth essential component is just that community. I didn't put it on there, but you're 100% right. Having community, people to talk to, people to relate with, just it's so important. And I know it's hard, especially as moms, to put in the time, put in the effort to cultivate relationships and have these experiences. I get it. I totally get it. And so I'd say my advice around that would be to just start. Find your people, reach out, set up things, and then give yourself grace and give other people grace, because people are going to cancel, people are going to not show up, and that is okay. That is okay. That is where they are. That is what is going on for them. And it says nothing about you, the way they feel about you, or the connection that is possible between you. So yeah, I just start, and then also have grace, give grace, and give grace to yourself as well, because you may need to be the one that cancels, right? Your kids get sick or something comes up, or you simply just don't have it in you today, and that is okay. So let's all give each other grace and be willing to get out there and connect and make that community happen.
Yep, love it.
Ah, well, that feels like a good spot to end. So we'll be on again next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can find Grizz and myself in the Facebook group, the Sacred Microdosing for Moms. So definitely look that up. And we do have a mentorship that is going to be launching pretty soon here, and we'll give lots more details of that as it comes out. But I'm so excited because it is supporting all of this. All of this. If anything that we said feels overwhelming or too much in the mentorship coming up, we're going to break it down. We're going to support you through every step of the process in order to create the most impactful, aligned, and beautiful and powerful integration practice that you can, because gosh darn it, you deserve it. Your kids deserve it. Everyone deserves it. So have a great week, y'all, and we will